All right. In theory, we should be live at this very moment. Let us see here if... Okay. Yeah, it appears that we are live. Good.
Amazing.
And there are... Oh, there are people coming in pretty quick, actually. It's about 5 people already. That's good.
Hello, 5 people.
Well, they're trickling in slowly. All right, I'm going to get my pipe ready here. Hello to everyone who's come in early. Hi, Josh Peters. How's it going? As usual, we're going to wait a little while. I mean, I know that there are other guys like Diversity and Dragons. They have this whole video clip that they play for 15 minutes while people are coming in and stuff like that. But I do not have the skills for that. And you guys all know that already. This is already the 21st episode of the RPG Pundit Encounter. And so you guys most of you know the drill. Most of you know that I am a complete technological illiterate. And it's a miracle I learned how to do this on StreamYard, and even there I have constant technical problems. Hey, so many great guys here. Look at that. We got Bob Manob. Hey Pundit, how is Uruguay? Uruguay is pretty good, actually. It's Uruguay's always pretty good. It's comfortable, let's put it that way. Josh Peters, it's going, living the dream. Hey. Wow, lots of people coming in. That's wonderful. I'm going to be very interested to know if any of you guys that are coming in right now are people who are coming here for the first time and you were drawn to this live stream because of Uri. Let me know. We're going to give things about 10 minutes or so until.
By the way, a small note. People always think my name is Yuri. Actually, my name is Uri.
Uri. Okay. Sorry.
Yes.
Well, I wasn't sure because you're part Russian, right? Or you were of Russian.
No, I'm from the Soviet Union, but I don't have any Russian blood.
Oh.
I do have
what
I do have also a Russian name.
Then? What republic?
I'm from the Russian Republic, but I'm not of the Russian ethnicity.
No. I mean, sure, right. I presume that you're descendant of Russian Jews,
yes.
Right? But was it from Russia proper, or was it from one of the other?
My father is from Odessa. My mother was born in Moscow.
Oh,
and if you go back a few generations, it's all over the place. Generic Polish, Lithuanian.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So I do have a Russian name also. I never use it, but I actually have one. It's Georgi. Georgi. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Uri. Sorry, my bad.
My given name is Uri.
Uri. All right. Perfect. Thank you for correcting the pronunciation for me there.
And with my last name, I won't even bother because no one can pronounce it.
Your what?
With my last name, I won't even bother because no one can pronounce it.
Yeah, it's not Kurlianchik.
Actually, pronounce it correctly.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, it's because I'm Polish, right? So
it's a Polish name, so that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I am of an aristocratic Polish extraction, so we your ancestors might have lived places that are named after my ancestors.
Probably Kurland is a region which still exists. But I think I'm from the opposite social strata because I researched my family background and my family was so poor, they were excused from paying taxes. So they were definitely not aristocrats.
Yeah. All right. So Josh Peters says, "Hey, Uri Hazak for staying up so late. I'd be incapable of holding a convo at 2 a.m."
The caffeine helps.
Yeah. That's what does it for me. I'm a night owl though. I only got up a few hours ago. And Darabit
I'm also,
says,
but yeah.
the Ninja Turtles RPG book just came in. Looking forward to using it for my games. So this is in relation to in a couple of issues of the show ago. I had Kevin Siambieda here, and we were talking about Eric Wujik, and their Palladium has just redone the Ninja Turtle RPG in his memory. Mac Thompson says my Russian name is Mac. I like that. Bob Manob says, I like your Greek mythology Amber clone, very thorough. Thank you. That's Lords of Olympus. That is an old game. Like I don't even list it anymore, in part because I don't have, I sold the rights to it. But
is it like
it's a very early game
Amber?
of mine. Sorry?
Is it based on like the Princess of Amber?
It was a book I made at the time that after Eric Wujik had died. And Amber was completely unavailable for purchase. I made a reordered version of the mechanics of Amber, but since I couldn't use the Amber novels as the source because I wouldn't have the rights to it, I made it a game where you are playing the children of the Greek gods, and called Lords of Olympus. All right.
It reminds me a little like the Dune board game. So they had the rights to the rules of the game, but not for the world of Dune. So they remade it in the setting of Twilight Imperium, but with the rules of Dune.
Yeah.
And whenever we would play the game, we're like, okay, so I'm playing Baron Kislev, and you're not Baron Kislev, you're the Harkonnen. I am playing, that race. Oh, you're not that race, you're the Emperor. Because everyone remembered the original game.
That happens surprisingly often in game design and things like that, right? Where you just end up having something that you can't get the rights to, and then you just file all the trademarks off.
Yeah.
Or that a game that was meant to be one thing ends up being another.
Yeah, I remember some game. I forgot the name. Basically, the idea of the game was, what if the Dark Lord had won? The Orc had taken over the realm, the Darkness won. But they didn't have the rights to Tolkien, so they had the Dark Lord, the Orc. So it was like Sauron without saying Sauron.
There's an RPG like that. It's called Twilight. I don't remember. But I actually had it. I actually ran a campaign of that particular game. That was years and years ago. It's very old.
I remember it. I did the opposite back in the day. So I ran a campaign about in which the players play a group of orcs after the Dark Lord was defeated. The orcs were scattered and they were being hunted down. So, how do you deal with this situation?
Well, we're about to find out from Amazon Studios, apparently, because I think that's the theme of their next Lord of the Rings.
God have mercy on us all.
Yeah, I know. It's just, and it's Stephen Colbert is going to be writing it. It's unbelievable.
Yes. Ironically, they are being very good students of Sauron right now, because I call Sauronism. When you're incapable of creation, so you corrupt.
You corrupt everything, yeah. Tolkien
it's like as if Sauron has taken over the propaganda and is basically, controls the story of Middle Earth now.
Exactly. So, guys, for all of you who are here already, I see there's according to the StreamYard, there's 13 of you on here right now. We're waiting because it always takes a few minutes for people to come, gradually entering the chat. And we're going to start in a little while, where we're going to be asking a number of questions to Uri, and he's going to be answering them. And you guys in the chat, you can also pose questions for him, and if I find them interesting, I will present them, or to me, I guess. Sometimes people ask me questions, and we reserve the right to either answer or not. This live stream right now, as it is live, is not monetized, so we are very grateful for anyone who wants to donate super chats. As usual, the super chats go to the Domino Cat Toy Fund. Domino being my cat, if this is the first time you've ever been here. But unlike certain other live streams, you don't have to make a super chat to get your question put up. I will put it up even if you don't do a super chat if I find it interesting. Now, if you give a super chat and ask a question, I will definitely read that question and try to get an answer for it, as long as it's not something that would, that repeating would get me into trouble with YouTube about, or something like that, right? Because I have to say that because sometimes things get spicy here, So that's basically the rules of how we do things here, and we are going to start in a short while. I don't know what that means, but it's a question for you, Uri.
Академия Pana Kleksa. That sounds Polish.
It does. Yeah. Named after
Pani is Polish.
Some plebeian woman named Kleska. Yeah.
Pana Kleksa. I have never heard about it.
No. I'm not familiar with.
When it comes to Polish fantasy, well, obviously The Witcher, but also you have Polish Legends, which everybody watched back in the day, an absolutely terrific series, which is on YouTube. You can watch it for free. So there's like that, but no, we have never heard about Pana Kleksa.
Bob, I'm going to be explaining a little bit, and I'm going to be allowing Uri himself to explain a little bit of his background in a very short while, as soon as we get caught up in people here. But since we were talking about Polish fantasy, this is Baptism of Fire, which is my best-selling OSR RPG, very thick as you can see, that is set in early medieval Poland during the start of the PS monarchy. If you want to have adventures in a Slavic land that is in the process of moving from pagan to Christian, this is the thing for you. It's if you haven't seen this before, it's completely based on actual Polish history, Polish mythology, Polish monsters, or Slavic monsters. In some cases, they're not just Polish. And it is set in basically like the real world, but the way that the people that lived at that time thought the real world was, right? So there are real monsters, there's real magic, all of those things. And it's been a very successful game, gold bestseller on drive-through.
And all the sunny disposition and positive outlook typical of Eastern Europe culture.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely, you just go through the chronology and you can tell why the Slavs are the way they are.
It reminds me of there was a Polish movie. I don't remember the name of the director. It's the same guy who made with Fire and Sword, Огнем Мечом. So he made a movie called When the Sun Was God, about like ancient Poland. Yes, it was a really cool movie. And they had like the Vikings were like this very dark, very brooding forces, and the native Slavs who united against them. Very cool movie. I think it's about the same period.
Very early in the history of Poland, the first PS monarchs. Just one sec here. All right.
Baba Yaga, Костяная нога.
Yeah, I was just actually typing an answer to that there is a Baba Yaga in Poland was called Jedza, and yes, the monster stats are in Baptism of Fire. All right, so we're getting to about 15 minutes, so I think we might as well get started here, because also, since Uri is up late, we're only going to go to about 90 minutes today. So first of all, to introduce to any of you who are not familiar with him at the moment, Uri Kurlianchik is I first met him when he was talking about RPGs way back in Google Plus, I believe. And he's done design work in RPGs, but he's also known for other stuff in geek culture. I believe he's also a sci-fi author or something like that, and he's
For my sins.
Yeah, and he is also. I don't know if you're still doing this, but I know that for some time you were involved in like education, using RPGs and things like that in education.
Yes, that's still my job.
There you go. And he is, as we've mentioned, he's in Israel. He's from Israel, and
yes,
he is. Some of you might know him because he is an outspoken Zionist. And I was just commenting that I've never before had, like, I mean, I've interviewed people that in the RPG world are vastly more famous than right? Kevin Siambiata, Sandy Peterson, right? Alexander Makaris, all these guys on this show. But Uri is the first one that I've had people that I know from other areas that have no interest in anything geek at all, right? Like these are like guys that work in business and things like that, right? Who were, who saw my post that I, my lives, and they know my live stream. They've never watched my live stream. Maybe they are now. I don't know. But they ended up contacting me and saying, "Oh, how did you get Uri Kurlianchik to go on your on your show, right? How did you do that, right?" And I was like, "Well, I know him from. How do you know him?" And he goes, I follow his Twitter, So he's kind of a big deal in certain circles. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's funny because I haven't done like RPG interviews in a while. I mostly done like more political stuff. Sure. That's like going back to my real origins online.
Yeah, and we are going to be talking a little bit, I'm sure, about politics. I'm not scared of doing that here.
These days, you can't talk about anything without talking about politics.
That's right. But we're going to start by looking at things about RPGs, and I do have some questions I want to ask you about that too. But we have a traditional first question that goes to all of our guests, right? So you've been involved in RPGs for what is it? More than a decade for sure now, because like I said, I met you on Google Plus, and that hasn't existed since I think like.
Well, my first involvement in RPGs was probably in the first grade, where I found like a D&D book. So yes, for a while.
Okay, so in all this time, especially in your career as being involved in game design or in like your use of RPGs for education and things like that, which people that the audience may know have been good to you and who has been bad to you? This is your chance to kvetch about anyone that you want to call out, or to thank those who have been good to you.
So I don't want to call out specific names, more like groups of people. So I was professionally active in the RPG world since 2005. My first publication was in Dungeon Magazine. Paizo was still running it. And back then, I really appreciated that they gave a chance to someone who is not just a complete unknown, but also for whom English was not my native language. And back then, their editor really had to put in a lot of work to make what I actually sent them presentable. And that was during my military service, so I didn't meet any of the deadlines when I was working. And that was my first ever publication. And since then, I had a lot of publications, but that will always have a very special place in my heart.
That's nice.
And back then, like, people weren't as obsessed with politics, and I knew there were left-wing people, right-wing people, moderate people. I knew that, but I've never thought it was relevant to gaming.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't care if someone who was playing D&D was a socialist or a free market. That was a completely different discussion. Exactly. And at some point, I started writing for Wizards of the Coast. I wrote a series of articles about playing with children, which is still my job, by the way. And at this point, I encountered the ugly side of RPGs. I had the audacity of telling a few off-color jokes, not on my articles, on Buzz. Most people probably don't even remember what it is. It's when Google tried to have their own version of Twitter. And also, I have done a completely horrible thing. I wrote an article that boys and girls are different. In my experience, as someone who has played with a lot of boys and girls.
I remember that now. That's right.
Yes. I commented in passing that there are certain styles of play which are typical for boys and which are typical for girls. And it was at that point then I learned about the kind of, back then we called them SJWs. And that kind of like, I didn't know the word woke. I didn't know about SJWs. I didn't know about these kind of people at all. And for a while, I thought I could have a good faith conversation with them. I thought I could explain myself to them. I thought that I could say that, no, I have no ill intentions. You misunderstood me. And these people really showed me how vicious, how aggressive, how intolerant the tolerant people are. That and the person who led the attack against me, who said I should not be allowed to work with children because of my regressive and horrible views, that person was later arrested for sexually assaulting a kid. And
how many stories are there like that? I mean, it's so unbelievable.
Yes. So and that is the person who made like entire speeches about what a horrible and terrible person I am, and that level of hypocrisy of like, white people are evil because they oppress brown people, and men are evil because they all attack women, and that person was a literal rapist.
Yeah. And
so that was such a shock for me that for a while I took a step back from writing RPGs, and back then I started doing like a crowdfunding, supporting my own things, because I felt like this world, it's so corrupt, I have no room in it. And for a long time, I didn't even submit in freelance work. And before that, I wrote for Mongoose Publishing, I wrote for Paizo, I wrote for Wizards of the Coast. And I just felt that this world had no room for me. Like either I was insane or they were insane. We weren't speaking the same language. And then some friends invited me to a group which was called the Conservative Gamers of America, which is funny because I never set foot in America. I mean, like all of my online RPG friends were Americans, but obviously I'm not American. And that kind of brought back my faith in the idea that I could internationally interact with gamers. So that, like, in a way, really brought me back from the darkness in which I was. So that's my story, a rise, fall, and hopefully a comeback.
A return. There you go.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's a good answer, and you answered about someone who was bad to you and someone who was good to you. So that's good. Mm-hmm. We've covered it. So what was it that first brought you to gaming as a hobby, right? Not like early on.
Okay, so when I was a very young boy, there was a kids magazine, Ma'arif Lenoir, and on the last page they had like one column with a short fantasy story. And at some point I realized these were not stories; these were descriptions of a game. And I got like really interested in like what kind of game could put you in these very interesting situations. And I just hunted for every bit of information I could, but I've never actually seen RPG books back then. And at some point, I met an American kid who actually told me what D&D is. And we tried to do some games with our friends. We didn't really know the rules. We only had 6-sided dice. We did absolute total nonsense. We only knew about the existence of like 2 or 3 monsters and like 2 classes. But I would say that was my first attempt at D&D. And later, I saw in the magazine that they translated Shadowrun into Hebrew. Shadowrun 2nd edition. Unfortunately, extremely complicated rules. We could not understand the rules, let alone use them. Yeah. But the world was so fascinating, so evocative. We had so many thoughts about the games we were going to run.
Such a great world, and it was always ruined by the system. Every edition was different, and they were all terrible.
Yes. So we didn't manage to actually play the game. The rules were just too complicated for us. But it was just so fun to like try create characters to speak about the things we were going to do. So that we bought this book, 3 of us together, and it like just each one had like a 10 days per month he owned the book.
It was a timeshare.
Yes, it was a timeshare book. Unfortunately, as I said, we couldn't actually run games. And then at some point, I found online, but by that point, I already spoke some English, a PDF with the second edition rules of D&D, which are actually playable. And I think I was about 12 or 13. And that's the point where we started to actually play role-playing games properly, with rules and characters, and actually we understood what we were doing. So I guess that's the point in which it really started.
Well, that's very cool. Now, I'm gonna skip ahead, because since you've given your introduction and you were talking about, this is directly a few little glimpses of what in the age of your childhood, at least, was the RPG scene in Israel, I presume. What is the tabletop gaming scene like in Israel? Because I'm guessing that most of the people watching right now are not Israeli or have never been there, and it's always interesting for people to learn about what the scene is like in more foreign climates.
So it's a little surprising. It's not what most people imagine. So first of all, in Israel, we never had the stigma that D&D is evil or satanic or whatever. So you can go to a religious school and we'll have a D&D club, and maybe the rabbi would even run games. So D&D, it was perceived as nerdy, it was perceived as not cool, but it was never socially ostracized. So right now the situation is like that. First of all, almost every school and every community center has a D&D class, and most people use D&D and RPGs interchangeably. They don't really understand that D&D is a type of RPG. So what D&D are you playing? Oh, I'm playing Star Wars D&D.
Yeah. So can you estimate how many people play RPGs in Israel? Would you say it is a community of hundreds or of thousands or of tens of thousands or what?
Tens of thousands. If you count also kids,
tremendous.
Yes. Yeah. Tens of thousands, yes. When you go to Icon, at every given moment, there are 5. Icon is the biggest RPGs convention. At any given point in time, there are about 5,000 people there.
Okay. Yeah, so that means that it's a big crowd.
Yes, and most of the grown-ups, they're too cool for D&D, so they look out these really exotic RPGs, which are very specific. You're gonna play the nightmare of a little boy trapped inside a shoe or whatever. It's so cool. You have to play that game. So you have a lot of these D&D snobs.
Okay, so there's definitely D&D swine in Israel, or RPG swine, I guess you could say. But is there also some kind of political divide in role-playing in Israel? The kind of left-right thing you see in North America,
I would say that the majority of geeks in Israel in general are left-leaning. Some of them are hard left. Basically, in LARPs, it's more pronounced. In LARPs, if someone
brought those politics into the games?
It's more the way they treat people. For example, if someone is even remotely, vaguely accused by someone of something which could be interpreted as sexual harassment, that's it. They're gone. They will never have a chance to defend themselves. They will never have a chance to prove their innocence. That's it. If you were accused, you're gone. Believe all women. Even if someone's being even accused by a woman who's known to suffer from schizophrenia, that's the case actually new. Still, the guy didn't had a chance to defend himself. With tabletop gaming, they're generally left-leaning, but not hard left, the kind of left which I don't fully agree with. But it's okay. I'm always open-minded. Maybe a more socialist system could be good. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. But it's not if you're right-wing, you'll be canceled and erased and destroyed.
And so you've said that because Israel is a society that has very secular Jews and very traditional and religious Jews, and you've said it implies that all those groups have people that might be playing D&D, except maybe some of the most extreme religious Jews.
Religious Jews have several types. They dress differently, so it's very easy to tell them apart. So when you have religious Zionists, they are more nerdy on average than secular Jews, because they love reading texts, arguing about texts, arguing about rules. So D&D is just perfect for them. And they also really value reading and education. Yeah, so like the kind of Jews who wear like colorful kippot, I think that in percentage-wise, more of them are gamers than secular people. And then you have the people with the black kippot. They're very strict, very puritanical, very religious, and then don't play D&D at all. I have never met any of them who have like any hobbies outside of their religious studies.
That's right. And do Israeli Arabs also play RPGs?
A small number. Most those who I met personally were all Christian, not Muslims. I did like met Arabs in conventions, in games. I was once in a party that had an Arab player. Again, a Christian guy. So I helped a friend start like a D&D class in Akar, and most of the players there, like the kids, were Muslim. But I don't know how long this party survived. It was more like a social program.
Because I'm asking,
they had fun.
There are RPGs are played practically worldwide now, but as a rule, I have never heard instance of any actual Muslim countries, and for probably pretty obvious reasons, where RPGs are played, right? But I was wondering about that particular demographic in Israel.
Okay, so about Muslims, one of the guys who helped me design my latest RPG book, Reds, he's Muslim, he's Turkish. And he told me that they actually used to have like gaming conventions in Istanbul, and they had like he would run games. But these are all people who are like culturally Muslim, but they're more secular.
Yeah. Well, Istanbul specifically has a large secular population, right? I mean, if you go into Anatolia or something, probably not. But it makes sense.
It's in a big city. I'm sure you have some people who are like outliers, but they will probably be playing mostly with Jews, not like. I can't really imagine a Bedouin camp in the desert and they're sitting around the fire and playing D&D.
That would be a fun thing to see, wouldn't it? We got a question.
I support it fully.
Uri, do the Haredi have a special blessing for playing D&D?
I think they say, why are we playing D&D instead of studying the Torah?
That's right. That would probably be it. They would get in trouble. All right. Well, that's very interesting to know, right? Because it's always different in
my pleasure
in other countries, right? So here in Uruguay, for example, there is a fairly large population of D&D players, and in the Uruguayan government, they have this. It's like the Institute of Youth, right? Like, so it's a government office in charge of youth involvement and activity and affairs and well-being and so on, right? And it's called the INHU, and they, for example, sponsor gaming conventions, multiple ones a year, right? Does the Israeli government do anything like that?
Usually it's done by local authorities who support like conventions and
no,
games.
The INHU is a national government institution. It's not for localities. But remember that Uruguay is a very tiny country. So.
Yeah, I was talking about Israel. So in Israel, it would usually be done by like local authorities.
Okay.
As far as I know.
So like city authorities or things like that?
Yes. Yeah, and local councils. As far as I know, on like a state level, no, they have never like got involved in any way.
It's an interesting question.
I've never heard them speak about it.
Especially for like Americans and stuff, because in the U.S. that would seem crazy, right? That the government would sponsor D&D games, but in a lot of other countries that happens, so like Finland famously and stuff like that. All right, so what was my actual next question? Okay, so what you've mentioned about your kind of earliest RPG experiences. What RPGs are kind of your favorites over the years and at present, if you have one?
Okay, so that's gonna be controversial, but I actually like D&D 5th edition.
You're welcome.
Yes. Yes. So a lot of the people, oh, you sold out. Real D&D is AD&D, and I love those editions. But I like 5th edition. I think it's a great system, very streamlined, very comfortable to use, especially when playing with younger players. Just a fun game, and I'm not going to be like a huge snob and say, oh, everybody plays it, so it's casual. I like it. I enjoy it. I love the system.
We designed it to be accessible for casuals. That was literally what we were talking about, right? So,
and that's a good thing. A lot of people are like, oh, it's too simple. It's not too simple. It's great. I love it. You've done a great job. Again, controversial among some of the very serious old guys, I know.
Oh yeah, well, the OSR people, I don't get a lot of praise for the OSR for having helped design 5th edition. So.
Yes, I imagine. I really like the Edge of the Empire Star Wars system, the one with the goofy dice, because I like the idea that rolls have non-binary results. It's not like you succeed or fail. You succeed, but you fail, but you succeed, and it's really fun. I actually have a couple of their crazy dice here.
Oh, yeah.
Great system. I used to really enjoy the White Wolf games, especially Vampire and Werewolf. We used to run like a really big vampire game called Tel Aviv by Night. We had about 30 players. We had like a monthly LARVs meeting and weekly tabletop sessions. Again, great system, very evocative world. I'm talking about the old World of Darkness. I never really got into the new World of Darkness.
But you are not an OSR guy, I take it, which makes you one of the rarities in this series, because almost everybody I interview are associated with the OSR, unless they're like really famous people like Sandy Peterson, Call of Cthulhu, or Kevin Sambieta, Palladium Games.
I sometimes enjoy revisiting like more old school games. But no, I wouldn't describe myself as OSR being like my main gaming identity. I like to experiment with new systems, and I don't necessarily think that if one bad roll kills your character, if you don't have that, your game is bad. A game which is like light and fun. I'm okay with that.
All right, that's good. And is D&D the most popular game in Israel? I forgot to mention that in the previous segment.
Yes, by far, because you have all those D&D classes in schools and community centers. So a lot of people literally grew up playing D&D with... go away, cat. By the way, the cat I told to go away, no, it's not my cat, just a random cat that wandered into my apartment, and he keeps pulling at the cables.
Oh, look at that. Well, my cat is wandering around my apartment, but she's just buggered off somewhere right now. Oh, we got a question for you from Dare Rabbit 7289. What is your ratio of being a DM versus being a player? Do you mostly play or do you mostly DM?
That's a painful question. I'm like 99% DM. I very rarely get to play. I'm the kind of person who is like the forever DM. A few years ago, one of my friends ran an excellent campaign. That was the only campaign I ever played in my life from start to finish. Sometimes people invite me to short games, but like I've been a player in exactly one campaign in my entire life.
My goodness. Well, there you go.
Yes. My suffering knows no bounds. But I do that for the people.
Crap Phone wants to know about your comment about LARP and tabletop mixed. Can you give some details on that?
Yes. Okay. So that's like an official. It was part of an international network. It was called One World by Night. They actually had mechanics for LARPs based on doing chops, basically rock scissor papers instead of rolling dice. So the monthly sessions were like the Elysium, where they meet and scheme and role play their characters, and in between they played it was me and I was the storyteller. There was several storytellers who helped me. We would like run tabletop sessions for the crazy adventures they had in between the games, there was also a lot of play by mail. Like if you did some relatively simple actions, you could mail them during the downtime. So that combined like email game, and sometimes when they would like go and have a fight or do something which you can't do by email, we would have physical sessions. And once per month we would have like the LARPs, and because that was Elysium, they couldn't really use their supernatural powers inside. So that was it required less suspension of disbelief.
That's really interesting that you bring that up, because this is going to gain me no appreciation from most of the audience, right? But in 2004 in Uruguay, I'd been there for about a year at that time. There was a very large gaming club, and by large I mean it had more than 100 people. That was called Botch, and they ended up running that exact same thing in Montevideo by night, right? And they strong-armed me into participating because I was a foreigner, right? And they thought it would be really cool if there was Clan Ventru had this like North American vampire or something like that, right? And so this was my like one experience of ever doing a vampire LARP, right? And it went on.
Meanwhile, we here sometimes would have like players come from South America in character to our games,
like,
and
they were vampire,
like people from Brazil. Yes. So like, and the guy who came from Brazil, their club was much older than ours. So he was so much more powerful than all the local players that, he just came as, this dark tyrant, and almost everyone there was Camarilla, like we have this Sabbat guy, and like I can just, slap all of you to hell. So you better respect me. And, with his thick Portuguese accent, that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, there we are. That's a terrifying thing to have confessed, but there we go. Eric 1971 says, thank you to Uri for introducing the Ezra and Nehemiah board game to me. It's a big hit in my Christian board gaming group.
Oh, it's a very cool game. Pretty heavy, a lot of rules. It's not a casual game.
I assume it has something to do with the construction of the Second Temple.
You assume correctly. You literally construct the Second Temple in this game, and you have to contribute as much as possible. And you have to manage the sacrifices, the construction, the prayers. It's like it's a very religiously and historically correct game.
Did you have something to do with that, or were you just promoting it?
I wasn't promoting it. I just played it one time, and I posted a screenshot of the table because it's such a huge and pretty game. And that's it.
Mac Thompson is trying to share some of the shame of it, but he admits that he was a storyteller for Vampire Warrior. Well, that's worse than me then.
That's what I did.
And Crap Phone says, not going to ask if they used one time for the well, they just used real time. That's basically how it worked, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Ultrim asks, what kind of settings are popular in Israel? Like, is it standard D&D, Tolkien-like, meaning is it standard with elves and dwarves, or is it like something in the Torah era? Before you answer that, I've probably mentioned this previously in other, I've certainly in my videos and so possibly in this show, that contrary to what a lot of people in the US might think, locally themed, cultural RPGs, they exist, right? There's always some guy that tries to make one. There's been like Uruguayan RPGs and stuff like that.
Yeah, there were several in Israel as well. You won't be surprised to learn.
But they're never the most popular, right? Like in my experience, at least in every country I've been to, the most popular games are stuff like D&D, Vampire, Star Wars, that sort of thing, right? The same games that people play in America. But I am interested if there's, like, what is are there a lot of actually, I was going to ask, are there a lot of like Israeli-made RPGs? Because I haven't ever heard of one, but.
Yes, there are. They were probably they were mostly being published in Hebrew.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't like reach international audience. All the ones I've seen were basically D&D clones. Just generic fantasy with simplified systems. There was one game which was like D&D with a very complex system. It was similar to the German RPG, which I forget its name, Claymore, Zweihander, some kind of sword.
Oh yeah, Zweihander, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a bit similar to that. There aren't a lot, but occasionally you have like Israeli RPGs. Usually it would be like a small setting and D&D inspired rules. I've taken a look at some of them. Honestly, nothing special. I mean, I appreciate people trying to make something local, but if it wasn't in Hebrew, you wouldn't say it's an Israeli game. It's just a game.
Right. So and they're not necessarily based on, like, some people are asking about like Hebrew history and culture and things like that.
We have enough of that in real life. All the actually Israeli RPGs I've seen were like this kind of Western generic fantasy.
Yeah.
And the majority of games that people are playing are also the most popular settings I've seen are Forgotten Realm style games. And
they're also pretty popular here too.
Yeah. If you're older, it may be Greyhawk, and a lot of people have their own fantasy settings. Kryn is pretty popular. And after that, you have like a more, well, obviously I really like Dark Sun and Ravenloft, but less popular. And also a lot of people play Vampire and Werewolf.
You like Dark Sun? Are you familiar with Lixuni Gaming? He's a publisher on DriveThruRPG. He has done a number of Dark Sun books that he obviously had to. He's giving them away, right? Because he doesn't have the rights to it, right? But so they're free, including like a very good 5e conversion and stuff like that. I know him because he publishes my Pundit Files periodical. And so he's also been on this show in one of my earlier episodes. Eric says, your comment made me think of this. Pundit, please do a historically accurate RPG in Old Testament. So I haven't thought about doing that yet, but right now the next big game of mine that's going to be coming out is called Sons of Heaven, which is a science fiction game based on the Star Adventurer rules that I came out with several years ago. But Sons of Heaven could basically be described as Old Testament Bible stories in space. I've also sometimes called it kind of the Bronze Age collapse in space, but it's got elements of both of those, right? So it won't be exactly what you want, Eric, but if you're kind of interested in that sort of thing and in like a biblical epic in sci-fi context, you
honestly
check that out when it's published.
There was an RPG based on the Old Testament back in the day.
There was. It was called Testament, I think, if I remember correctly.
But it's not really enough for an entire campaign. It's like it's a nice game, but I wouldn't run an entire campaign because it's a very simple world.
Yeah, you can't do an RPG about the Old Testament, right? Because it covers too much of a span of time, too many different stories, right? You could do something about a specific period, right? Like a lot of the stuff I have in Sons of Heaven is influenced by the Book of Judges, right? And then and also kind of the story of David. So it's going to have that kind of vibe to it.
Like, for example, every Passover, I run like games for kids, which are based on the story of Exodus, except I combine it with Stargate, which like works really well together. But it's something that can carry, one session, maybe a few sessions. You can't really turn it into an entire campaign. Like, they wandered 40 years in the desert, but as a player, I would get bored, wandering 40 years in the desert. Like, how many kinds of challenges can you have?
Well, if you read the Book of Exodus, they had their share of challenges. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Josh Peters says, I crowdfunded Sword and Wizardry in Hebrew a couple of years ago, mainly to help my literacy. That's good.
So I remember that game vaguely, but I didn't really like study it.
And let's see here. What are King David's stats in the OSR? Well, I guess that depends if you're talking about, young shepherd David or, old grizzled David. You'd probably have to do two stat blocks for him. Mac Thompson says, what part of the galaxy, how much of it, and what timeline? Well, it's set, Sons of Heaven is set 20,000 years in the future. And essentially, like, humanity was, thousands of years ago enslaved by an alien species. They then escaped, right, in a story that's a little bit Moses-like, right? And then they founded their own confederation in space. But then at the present time of the setting, it's about 200 years after that confederation was destroyed in a massive interstellar war. And so the player characters are people that are basically trying to rebuild civilization. And one of the major themes in the game is that one of the distinguishing characteristics of humans in that setting is that they have retained a single kind of religious belief system. When they were enslaved, like from our Earth, so to say, almost all of their culture and history was wiped out, except for a tiny handful of texts that people had managed to save, right? And so, like, one of these texts was actually like a children's story about Moses, which is part of what inspired the revolt against the aliens who had conquered them. Then there's one that's like 100 speeches, great speeches of the Penguin Book of Great Speeches of the 20th century. And then there's like the I Ching, and then there are like a couple of other books, anyways. And so like those like 5 books became the basis of their entire culture, right? And so in 20,000 AD, they venerate the Lord of Heaven. They have a monotheistic belief system that is not too different from kind of Judeo-Christian beliefs, and it's sort of like a biblical epic in space, right? And I think if it gives it a very big twist from most science fiction games, where either there is kind of no element of religious culture, right? Star Trek, like, we don't, that's old time beliefs, right, or whatever. Or where the religions are really fucking weird, like Warhammer. So there you are.
Warhammer, for me, it shows like the ultimately what happens under socialism if it stagnates, because a lot of people forget that in Warhammer the emperor was originally an atheist. He believed in a secular, rational world. He wanted to create this utopia based on reason. But the longer the system stagnated, the more his secular, rational utopia turned into a fanatical religion, which kind of worshipped the system instead of the system, serving people. People started worshiping the system. So for me, Warhammer 40K is showing that like you can try to like avoid religion through like atheism and secularism, but the result is getting something even more fanatical.
A church of the state, basically. I mean, like the emperor in Warhammer 40K is kind of like the ancient Chinese philosophy of Moism, which is like, the state is the only power, the only thing that matters, and the emperor is basically the living God, and
if the emperor like saw what became, if he wasn't like an invalid, like the new Ayatollah of Iran, he would have been horrified. He would have been horrified, because that's not what he fought for. That's not what he wanted to create. I think it would have broken his heart. So that's like a very interesting point there, like religiously. because most games have just these pseudo pagan systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like,
and that's something, for example, that I've done differently. I've got, in Baptism of Fire, by default, you are playing Polish Christians, right? And in Sword and Caravan, which is set in the Third Crusade, and from the Third Crusade to the Mongol invasion, right? It's the Silk Road campaign book. You play either Christians or Muslims or Jews or whatever, right? You play the actual religion.
Yeah, in a lot of my games,
as they were,
even in D&D games. A lot of my games. So I tell people, you're a cleric, and like, what gods do I have? You have one god. And really, how come I have like this domain, that domain? And I said, God is great. He contains multitudes.
Yeah. Well, and remarkably, in fantasy, basic fantasy settings, they're mostly medieval fantasy, right? But I've made the argument repeatedly that in a medieval fantasy, for it to really be a medieval society, it has to be monotheistic, right? Monotheism was a central aspect of the European medieval experience.
Yes, absolutely. One of the reasons I absolutely hated the movie The Green Knight is because they try to retell this Arthurian myth, but take out Christianity from it. Make it completely secular. And these stories don't work without Christianity. These are Christian knights. These are Christian warriors. If you take away their Christianity, it's grotesque. You void it of meaning. Just like if you made a game based on the Old Testament, but took out the one God, like, what are we even doing here? What's the point?
Yeah. All right. So let's change the subject, because we don't want to run out of time here. You also designed at least one RPG entirely yourself. I know you've also worked on other RPGs, but the one I
actually have it
more than one RPG, but the one that I know that you made is an RPG called Rats. Do you want to tell the gamers about it here?
Oops. Yeah.
So tell us what it's about.
Okay, so the idea of Rats is that, not surprisingly, you play literal rats. And what happened is that at some point, one of the rats became awakened. It learned to speak, it learned to think, it became intelligent, but it still kept the wonderful personality we associate with rats. And he traveled across the world, awakening rats. He became like their prophet. And he said that humanity stole our place. We are the chosen people, not humans. God chose us. And he became like the prophet EE. And you play one of those awakened rats who lead a holy war against humanity for stealing the rightful place from God. The problem is that those rats are extremely belligerent, and they spend most of their time fighting each other for the right to fight humanity. So it's pretty rare for the players to actually do what they're supposed to do. They mostly spend the time sabotaging each other, betraying each other, scheming against each other. So they're like different cultures. And this game has a very strong random element, because I absolutely love random tables.
As do I.
So it's like a huge part of the book is just pages after pages after pages after pages after pages of random tables, random things that can happen. Writing it was probably the most fun thing I've done in my life. So basically, every time you advance, you gain a random mutation, and your rat becomes like weirder and weirder. And if you like roll the same mutation twice, the mutation gets like a mutation. You get a meta mutation. And so it's a very chaotic, very random game. It's not really meant for long campaigns. It's more like a game for short, really crazy adventures. But you can run long campaigns. Actually, run campaigns in this world, and the players like advance quite a bit. And it's a very satirical game. Like every red culture satirizes a human culture in a very mean way. And I try to satirize as many different cultures as possible, so no one would accuse me of discrimination. Like if you believe in something, I probably made fun of it. If I didn't, my apologies. We'll do it next edition. So, we have like the corporates who make fun of corporate executives. You have the gurats who make fun of, those enlightened pseudo-intellectuals who go to India and say, oh, I'm now spiritual. You have the Zumi, or like, these Japanese rats are absolutely obsessed with, dealing like very beautiful sword blows, which don't do any damage, but, just look beautiful. You have the pie rats, or like sea rats. You have the pocket rats, or Australian rats, who are obsessed with hunting, and they mostly hunt each other, etc. So you have like a lot of different cultures. And so that's something I make completely for myself. Two of my friends illustrated it. A guy named Gokshi helped me design it. It was completely crowdfunded. And I kind of did this game because I was like so angry at the RPG community. I said, I'm going to make my own game. I don't need you. And luckily, a lot of people connected. A lot of people liked it. And interestingly, a lot of people who supported the book were people not from the RPG community, but people from the rat community. People had pet rats and wanted for there to be a game which will like represent rats, not as monsters, but something you play. So that was it was very pleasant discovery. A lot of really fun people there. And that's the game.
And where can people buy it?
So the word completely, like the main RPG store, the word just flew out of my head right now for some reason. Maybe it was 3 a.m. Yes.
Drive-through? Yeah. Okay. Drive-through
yes.
RPG. There you go. You can look for it.
There is a PDF, and there's also a very nice physical version. I wanted for this book to be like really beautiful, so it could also be like a coffee table book. So it's very nicely illustrated. It's also an album, a lot of great art. I'm very proud of it. I probably won't do another RPG ever, but I had to do it at least once, and I'm very happy with the result.
Very good. So let me just see if there's any. Okay, no, that doesn't look like we've got any other questions here at the moment. So, and have you worked on other RPGs? Were you involved
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Not in their design, but I wrote a lot of supplements for them. Yeah, sure. I wrote a few chapters for Interface 0. It's in Cyberpunk. I wrote their Russian and Middle Eastern setting. I wonder why he asked me to do that.
Uh-huh.
I wrote a couple of books for Mongoose's Traveler, their campaign guide, and the Robots book. I wrote one of the first ever Eberron Adventures, which were published. So D&D. I wrote like a few adventures for Conan the Barbarian, again when it was like a Mongoose, and it was Mongoose publisher.
Okay, so that's quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah, I used to do like a lot of writing for hire. It was really fun. I kind of stepped back in 2012, but between 2005 and 2012, I wrote a lot. That was like, basically my job.
Yeah, I did that too for a while. So, where was that? Crapphone has a question for you, where he said he would not do another RPG ever. What does he see as his role long term?
So I see myself perhaps doing freelance work. If I see some game I connect to in the future, that's definitely an option. I could maybe again write supplements and adventures. I don't think I would like invent an entire RPG from scratch. That was a lot more work than I thought it would be. And the playtesting took ages, and I kept like every time I thought, okay, I have the perfect game, I would like run one session. Oh god, it's terrible, doesn't work at all. It's unplayable. And then okay, I fix all the problems. It's a great game. I would run one session. Oh god, no, it's even worse now. So the playtesting was.
You have been also involved in like RPGs for education, is that right?
Not exactly. It's okay. So Israel has what's called chugim. These are after-school groups, and it's basically they have a lot of different classes that you do after school, which are supposed to be like informal education, but they're not used to educate something else. Like their purpose is to have the game. So you
right.
can. It's like you have a football group.
So it's
which
more
you don't
like
use football to educate.
an RPG club than it is didactic.
Yes,
RPGs.
yes, but they're of a more private nature, and you have so many. You have like at this point, drawing comic books clubs, training dogs clubs, horse clubs, survival clubs, like everything. So what I'm doing is we have these RPG D&D clubs. Honestly, we call them D&D. Even if we don't play D&D, we still call them D&D. We also do some board games, and so I have those, and we also do LARPs as birthday events, live action birthdays.
Oh, that's interesting. Josh Peters asks, what kind of adventures do you run for the kids? Are they dungeon crawls, hex crawls? Are they modules, your own materials?
So for younger kids, I usually do very basic dungeon crawls or fetch quests. If it's more complicated than that, they kind of get lost. Mostly it's goblins stole my cow, please get my cow back. And something which is very important for people to remember is, like, for us, after we've played for like decades, fighting a goblin in the woods is banal and boring and not satisfying because we have already done it a million times. But for someone who is 8-year-old and playing for the first time in his life, just meeting a goblin in the woods and fighting him, that's super exciting, super awesome. They will be talking about it for the whole day. So I don't want to skip the classics and do like very complicated, very innovative things, because I want them to know the classics. I want them to do like simple things like fight a zombie or fight a troll, and oh my god, his wounds regenerate. How are we going to defeat the troll? So for kids, I usually do like these very basic things: go from point A to point B and have some cool fights in the way, and some riddles. For older kids, I'm doing like serious games. For example, I recently finished Ravenloft, the original Ravenloft, which is funny because the adventure is actually older than me, from '83, yes. And they played it really
great. I wish I could
say that. Game. Yeah, I saw this book in the store once, and oh my god, I have to have it. And so yeah, you like with teenagers, you can definitely run like very complicated games, and I did with them like Against the Giants, White Plume Mountain, Ravenloft, the classics which I do for me because I love them. And I'm not doing it this year, but I also ran like a few Star Wars campaigns using the Edge of the Empire system, which is a really crazy, really fun system. Not great for young kids. Again, it's a bit too complicated for them. But for teenagers, yeah, it works great.
All right.
Hex scrolls I usually don't do because kids, even slightly older kids, they do need direction. If you just drop them in the map and do whatever you want, they get kind of lost. It's not really fun for them.
So before we change tact here, I'm going to make a few programming notes in case anybody wasn't here when I said this at the beginning. This live stream is not monetized at the moment because it's live, and apparently if I monetized it, that means people get ads and stuff. But we very much welcome any kind of super chat that you might want to give. All super chat proceeds go to the Domino Cat Toy Fund. And that's my cat, in case if this is the first time you've been here. She has not shown up on this live stream yet, but she might. You never know. Second,
my cat is also outside of the house. He's I think has his own adventure.
So I wanted to mention that my latest product to come out, or rather to come out again, is the Pundit files. They're being reissued now on DriveThruRPG, and the newest one has just come out today. It's Pundit Files issue 9, which is the Invisible College 1930s campaign. This is theoretically it's a source book for my Invisible College occult RPG, but which is like a game where you're playing agents of a secret society that are fighting in a secret occult war to determine the future of humanity. It's the main book is set in the present day, but this one is a source book for the 1930s. However, the book itself, the Pundit Files issue itself, is almost entirely system neutral, because what it provides is basically an occult timeline of the 1930s and details about, different occult factions that were active at the time and occult events. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, you can check that out. I will post the link here. Actually, I'll just post the link to Lixuni Gaming so that everyone can see it. And that, there you go. That link will lead you to the Lixuni Gaming website, who has well, I don't think he has the Dark Sun modules there, because that's a free product that he does, but he has some of his own OSR books there, and of course all 9 issues of the currently reissued Pundit files. The one before that was Magic of the Kunlun Mountain, which is a series of ritual magic that you can use in D&D or any OSR game that is based on medieval Tibetan sorcery. So, check it out. Check all of those out. I've already mentioned Sons of Heaven. It is, for those of you who are anxious to get it, it's going to come out probably sometime in the next 2 months or so. Right now, Mad Scribe Press is working on the art, and it looks fantastic. It's going to be a very nice book, like all of his books are. So just keep in mind that part. I'll also mention to those of you who are here in the chat right now that the project I am now working on, I have finally finished the first draft, and I've been a little bit quiet about what it's about, but I think because you guys are my faithful people that have shown up for the live stream today, even though we did it a little early, my next game after Sons of Heaven, title yet to be fully determined, is going to be set in the Roman Empire in the crisis of the 3rd century. So if you guys are fans of ancient Rome, and I've been told that all men think about Rome at least twice a day, right? So you are going to want to check this book out when it comes out. Of course, it might not come out until later in the year, right? Because like I said, I haven't even officially locked a publisher for it. It'll probably be Mad Scribe unless he's too busy, but we will see. All right. So Eric, the crisis of the 3rd century technically is not the fall of Rome. That's the incredible thing. If you look at the history of that time period, there was a moment there, like around the 270s or so, where it should have fallen, right? It absolutely should have died. But it didn't, right? It ends up being saved, and then it lasts for another 100 years. So it's pretty remarkable. Monkey, thank you very much for the $2 super chat. Cats rule. Enjoy some treats. Thank you for that. All right, so now I'm going to do something that I don't typically do, but this is a very exceptional case, right? Because almost everyone, everyone that I've ever brought on this show, it's people who are involved in RPGs, right, in some capacity or another. Most of them are game designers, some of them are YouTubers, but it's always about RPGs. But Uri is probably more famous, I would say, not for his RPG fandom, but for his Zionism, right? He has become pretty much a major Zionist influencer on X. Oh, Mac Thompson, $2 super chat, SPQR, very good. Thank you very much. I'm sure you guys are going to love this game, by the way. But I'll be giving more details as time goes by, and you'll get to decide. So, I guess my first question regarding that is, how Zionist are you?
So the issue with the term Zionist is that most people, both are for and against it,
things, right?
Yes, don't really know what it actually means. So for people in Israel, we basically use the word Zionist interchangeably with patriot. What it actually means is basically the belief that Jews should have a state. That is all. Zionism doesn't mean that it should be militant or peaceful, left-wing or right-wing. If you look at the history of Zionism, you had Zionist socialists, you had Zionist revisionists, you had Zionists who were obsessed with the free market. So Zionism isn't like left-wing, right-wing, just the belief that it's basically Jewish nationalism, that there should be a Jewish state. So in this regard, for me, it's binary. Either you believe that Israel is just a country, like any other country, and that in that case you're a Zionist. Like if someone just says, "Oh, I don't care about Israel, I just don't care. I have no opinion," he's a Zionist. It's a country, just a country. If you view Israel the same way you view Belgium or Korea or Japan or Turkey or Uruguay, that's it. You're already Zionist. That for me that is Zionism. If you want to destroy the state of Israel, then you are an anti-Zionist. So in this regard, for me, it's like a binary issue because that's how. But
to be fair, within it there are different subclasses, let's say, right? Because there are the religious Zionists, there are the secular Zionists of the state of Israel.
Yes, that's what I was saying, because there are so many different ones.
There are less moderate Zionists, let's put it that way, right? And there are, so there are different different elements, right?
These are all foreign terms. You will not hear like anyone say in Israel that he is a moderate Zionist or an extremist Zionist. Basically, we have the Zionist parties, which are the parties that believe Israel should be a Jewish state. And we have the non-Zionist parties, who are parties who say that Israel should not be a Jewish state. And by the way, some of those parties are Jewish. They're not all Muslim. So in this regard, but if you ask me how much of a nationalist I am, like 1,000,000%, unapologetically. And since basically on October 7th, I made a decision I will never be nice again to people whom I perceive as enemies. I will not try to compromise with them. I will not try to appease them. I will not try to reason with them. You chose to be my mortal enemy. Okay, I'm also your mortal enemy. I will never have pity for you. I will never back down. I will never try to compromise in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Jewish people made this decision on that day. But that's not because it's not like Zionist or non-Zionist. It's simply because we want to live. And if you tell us you don't accept the most basic idea that we are just people, that our existence is offensive to you. Okay, if you want these to be the rules, these are going to be the rules. What am I going to do? It's like again, if we go to Lord of the Rings, if Sauron said, "I'm going to destroy everything," okay, then we're going to destroy you. Like,
you can't negotiate.
What choice do we have?
Right? Exactly. No. You cannot negotiate with people that want to destroy you. So this is perfect. Mac Thompson gave an example of what I'm trying to argue here, is that he says, "I always understood to mean that Jews should be able to retain the land that God gave them and maintain their culture, religion, language, and lineage." Sure, but there are secular Zionists too, right? There are people that think it doesn't really have anything to do with God, as far as they're concerned.
Yes,
it has to do with the modern liberal state of Israel, right?
Like, for example,
liberal not in the sense of American politics, but in the sense of it being a
Beryl Katzenelson. He was like a left-wing socialist, who'd march with a red flag on May the 1st. Yeah. And in the 30s, he was like a very active Zionist, but he was very left-wing. He was not religious.
But of course, it's also absolutely true that there's a whole bunch of Jewish Zionists who are Zionist with that kind of religious element.
Absolutely, yes. You even have the religious Zionist movement, which is not called like that in Israel, by the way, which started from the Rabbi Cook, if I remember correctly. In Israel, you usually just call them Dati Leumi. It means like national religious, or Kippot Surgot, which means woven kippot, because their kippot are usually colorful, not black. And they combine their religion with a political position, which is generally associated with the right wing.
Monkey, I totally agree. And
thankness.
Yeah, and it is, Israel is the. It's actually funny because and people, some people, the usual suspects hate it when I say this, right? But there are very few countries today that represent the traditional values of Western civilization, right? And the top ones are probably the United States and Israel, right? And you know, if I'm generous, I could add Poland to that maybe, and maybe Hungary, I don't know. But you know, most of the Western countries are not really Western anymore. In fact, actually, the southern cone of South America, Argentina, Uruguay, and Chile, are more Western than most Western countries today. And Israel is more Western than almost every country in Europe, we would have to say. You know, so they are a representation of the peak civilization that humanity has been able to invent so far, and nobody should be apologetic about that. You know.
One of the issues that the purpose of the EU is to completely crush the Western spirit, to basically make people ashamed of all the achievements of their fathers, to make them ashamed of their civilization, their culture. And I think one of the reasons why the EU hates Israel and America so much is because they do not apologize, they do not beg, and they have dignity. So a few years ago, I spoke with a British guy, and I told him that they had this music festival, and some guy said like death to the IDF, and you know people were angry. I said I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Like you defended us, but there is something we should understand. Like that guy before that spoke a lot of crap about England, about the English people. Is England not the national home of the English people? Don't the English people deserve to have a country? And I told him like, who is defending the dignity of the English people? Like you're defending our dignity, and I appreciate it. You know, God bless you. But why aren't you defending the dignity of your own people? The English people also deserve to have their dignity defended. Yeah. And he just couldn't understand me. Like he couldn't understand what I meant by the dignity of the English people. That concept was it was beaten out of them so thoroughly in their education system that the word dignity, it's a meaningless word for them. They don't understand it. And told him if that guy, what he did in England, if he did the same thing, for example, in Syria or in Turkey, the police wouldn't have to investigate if it was hate speech or not, because the police would have to collect what remained of him in a dustbin, because the public would have beaten him to death. And I'm not saying we should be barbarians like that. No, I don't support like murdering people for speech at all. What I'm saying is that, but people should, at least in some way, have dignity, and dignity is worth defending. Not just like Israeli and American dignity, but dignity of Western civilization in general. So that's something which is a very painful issue for me when I see how these people just throw away their dignity and the achievements of their fathers and everything, like it's garbage, like it's nothing.
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of British friends, and I was I lived in England for a while. I'm associated with the British community and things like that. And you know, most of my friends in Britain are also Zionists, right? You know, some of them are Jewish, not all of them, but I remember how many of these people were absolutely appalled and horrified by Tommy Robinson, right? And you know, they were, because they presumed, right? They presumed certain things about him. And it's also because of the class structure there and everything, right? But you know, like there is no champion of Britishness that you're going to find in the upper classes that would match that, because only the working class in Britain, you know, the actual British English working class are still in any way patriotic, right?
And then so
they were like shocked when Tommy Robinson recently went to Israel, right? And he was, he loved it, and he loved them, right? And all of that. And so, this is, there should be an alliance. And unfortunately, the problem is that there are a lot of, in the United States and in Europe, there are a lot of these kind of groups of nationalists of their own countries that, for one reason or another, have been subverted by these kind of anti-Semitic elements, right? You're definitely seeing some of that in the United States today, but
I think that is the result of the,
as you said, it's a patriotism, right? And everybody, like the only way to beat a globalist machine is for all people who are believers in national identities to work together as allies, because that's what they should be, you know?
The problem is that in the West, the media, this globalist machine convinced people that nationalism is a gateway drug to Nazism. But in reality, healthy nationalism is the antidote to Nazism.
Exactly.
And the reason you get these Nazi elements is because they didn't let people be nationalists, didn't people be proud of their nation. And that developed in these pathological ways. So even if you look at the original Nazism, it was born from the humiliation of Germany and born from a lot of valid concerns which people had. And I could sympathize with those concerns, but because they weren't allowed to treat those concerns in a healthy and productive way, it spilled out in these pathological and very destructive ways, which ended up being destructive for, I always tell people, more Germans died in World War II than Jews. At the end of the day, Germany was devastated. And so Nazism leads you to destruction and death, but nationalism leads you to security and peace.
Yeah. Well, you see the same thing happening in the United States, right? I've had a whole bunch of friends of mine over the last, well, I guess since 2015 until today, right? The people that have gotten Trump derangement syndrome, right? And they're like, oh no, MAGA's terrible. They're fascists. They're going to destroy America and all this. So they're like, no, guy, you don't understand, right? The MAGA is the last attempt at reform, right? And if you crush that, the next thing that will come after that is going to be what you're so afraid of, right? Because
exactly.
This is the one that says we're giving democracy the chance to reform itself into something that restores a sense of national pride, right? That's never the problem. The problem is what happens when you crush that, and then all that's left, the only people that anyone can go to at that point are the monsters, and that is happening all over the Western world now.
It reminds me of a quote from Ali. He was Muhammad, if I remember correctly, both cousin and son-in-law, because they like that kind of thing. And he said that every man shall meet. Yes. He said, the Imam Ali, he said, every man shall meet what he wishes to avoid. So by trying to crush MAGA, they are running towards that thing which they try to avoid. Because somehow Trump is at the same time both a Nazi and a servant of the Jews. And they're very good at double think. They have no problem holding these two contradictory things.
They can contradict themselves because nothing is real to them. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, and the irony is that, as Imam Ali said, that every man shall meet what he wishes to avoid. They are running towards the thing they think they're running away from, and by strangling decent nationalism, that way they will get extremism. That way they will get something destructive. So and it is a very valid cause of concern, I think.
Absolutely.
Basically, I want to see European Zionism. I want to see Europeans who say that I want to have a country in which my culture will have preferred treatment, and that's fine. Because when I come to England, I'm a guest. I'm a guest in England. I don't want the English to change and become like me. I don't want them to change themselves in order to reflect my values. I'm a guest. And I want to be a guest. I want the world to be full of different cultures and different countries, and everyone to feel somewhere at home. I want every nation to feel they're at home somewhere.
Yeah, well put. So you recently had a tweet that was very interesting because it mirrors something that I've repeatedly said for quite some time now. You made this tweet that you were pointing out that it seems that Israel's policy in terms of the conflicts with the various groups that oppose Israel is to set yourself out. I think it is about 2 days ago to set themselves against that group and to just utterly crush them to a 99% level and then stop. And then it all will come back again because you've stopped, right? And you're saying, well, who benefits from that and that sort of thing, right? And I've been saying, I'm a historian, and what I've for a very long time I've been saying, well, Israel hasn't fought several wars. It's just been fighting the same war every 20 years or so. It becomes it's the same repetitive thing. because the job never gets fully finished, right? And really, for a long time, that has been partly, I am sure, because of Israeli policy of wanting to stay on the good side of some international community, right? Which I really, really hope that after these last couple of years, they start to smarten up and understand that it doesn't matter if the French are mad at you, right? Like that should just not even be a faction of what you're considering. But there's also often been, a real, at least from the Yom Kippur War onwards, there's been a real foreign influence detaining that finishing of the job, which has been the United States. Right? Like they have consistently gone in and said, well, no, hang on, right? And Nixon did that, and Biden did that, right? And Trump has done that now, right? Like he's done it recently, right? One of the things that I find hilarious, and I mean, kudos to Bibi Netanyahu for figuring it out, right? Is that there's this program that the United States and Israel have that all of the anti-Semitic right in the United States complain about, right? Oh, we're giving billions of dollars to Israel, right? That program, it wasn't created out of some kind of Israel loving zeal or something like that. It was created because Israel was starting to make its own defense industry, and the Americans wanted to stop it because they were worried that would compete with their defense industry. So they give these, and I'm sure you know this, but I think some of the audience might not, right? That they were they set up this program where they give Israel billions of dollars, but that money has to then be spent on buying American military hardware. So it is not a subsidy to Israel; it's a subsidy to the American military-industrial complex, and it's made specifically for two purposes. The first is to make sure that Israel won't make a better fighter jet than the Americans, and the second is to make sure that they can put pressure on Israel when they believe it is not in their own interest for Israel to engage in military activity, right? And that has happened over and over again. So now, Netanyahu has said he wants out of that program, which is really hilarious because apparently some of these, anti-Semites in America had never heard that, and they get really pissed off when I say, "Oh, thank you for agreeing with the Prime Minister of Israel." But
but the Americans were against it. Like the American government said that no, let's not end the program. It's too early. Let's do it like by phases.
Yeah, they have. That's exactly what they've been doing. They've been saying, "Oh, well, we can try maybe to do this in 4 years' time." Like, what they're hoping is that Bibi won't be there anymore by that time, and they'll get somebody else, right? Because they know this. The American government, Israel does not control the American government. The American government controls Israel when they want to make it stop, right?
Honestly, I'm not sure the American government controls the America. I think that the weapon industry just tells them, okay, so we're going to do that.
Yeah, well, the American government is a multifaceted Leviathan, right? And so you're right about that. And certainly the American military industrial complex has an enormous interest in not getting, a genius competitor going against them, selling jets to other countries. But there are other elements of it as well, right? So like, for example, the Biden White House probably did not care that much about the military industrial complex. What they cared about was all of them do to some degree, right? But not to the same way that a hardcore corporate Republican might. But they were more concerned about trying to maintain their image in the view of the international community, right? And
it reminds me a little. So in the second edition, you had the chapter about alignments, and had like a short story in which they demonstrated every alignment, and they had like the true neutral druid who said, okay, so who is winning, the monsters or the players? If the players are winning, I can help the monsters. If the monsters are winning, I can help the players. Like this kind of neutrality.
Yeah, there's that famous political cartoon that came out back in I guess it was during the Obama administration, where it shows like, an Israeli and and an Arab, one of the, I don't remember if it was Hamas or Hezbollah or which one, right, that are sitting at the table. And John Kerry, the Secretary of State, is, he's there doing the negotiation, right? And the Arab guy says, well, we want to kill all the Jews. And John Kerry looks at the Israeli representative and says, well, could you meet them halfway, right? Like, could you be willing for half of the Jews to die, right?
Yeah.
And that would be peace, right? Because it would end there. And that is the stupidity of this mentality that so many people in the West have, right? Like you said, you can't negotiate with people whose foundational document, like Hamas, says,
nor should you
kill every last Jew.
Because in issue there is people call them the cult of peace. So they say they want peace, but they don't really want peace. They want a peace treaty. They want a piece of paper with the word peace on it. They don't care how many people get killed. They don't care how much terrorism there is. Their goal is not to have peace. They don't really care about it. Their goal is to have a piece of paper with the word peace on it. But I'm going to say something controversial. I think that even if Israel became completely independent economically and militarily, that's not going to happen. But suppose it happened, that will not solve the problem. And I will refer to our mythology. So in the Bible, Joshua ben Nun, he is a dictator, so he is not beholden to his voters. He has a mandate from God, the highest authority you can think of. There is no UN, there is no Biden, there is no Trump, there is no ICC, there is no EU. He is an absolute dictator commanding these tribes come from the desert, and he can do whatever he wants. He is absolutely free. And he's commanded by God. He said, you have to destroy these several nations, or there will be a thorn in your side. And if you don't do that, you will suffer. And he's told that by God. Supposedly, God should be an authority on these matters.
Yeah.
And again, that's like in the Bible. And the Jews do not do that. They do not destroy those tribes. They leave them, and those tribes are a big problem.
They have them as serfs or slaves, yeah.
And then they rebel. They start wars. They start conquering Jewish cities. And the Book of Judges is basically about that.
And then it happens again in Samuel, right? Like the reason Saul ends up losing the mandate, he did not destroy the Amalek, is because he spares the Amalekites.
Yes.
So why? Because he wanted the plunder, There
is, I think, some intrinsic quality to the Jewish people throughout all of history, which causes them not to completely finish wars. For example, I read about the Russian Empire. So they fought with the Cherkessian in the 19th century, and the Cherkessian didn't surrender. They couldn't reach a compromise. They couldn't talk to them. They couldn't solve the problem. And then the Russians just killed them all. They killed or expelled 97% of the Circassians. Towards the end of the war, there were no Circassians in Circassia. And no one even talks about it because the Russians came, they did it, and just continued with their life. Obviously, support for the Circassians. If you go to Circassian towns in Israel, they have posters about it. They have monuments for them. Obviously, it's a very traumatic event, and I can't blame them for that. But for the Russians, it's absolutely nothing. If you tell a Russian that you have killed 97% of these people, say, "Oh, what you gonna do?" So that is something which Jews, I think, are just incapable of. It goes against our nature. So we will never win wars, absolutely, because winning wars is something which is contrary to the most basic, some very basic element of the Jewish psyche.
So you think that even without any element of foreign interference, that would still be the problem? And I wonder if it is something.
Yes.
You could wonder if it is something kind of psychological, which is that Israel has been defined. Modern Israel has been defined essentially by, among other things, but it's a very big part of it. The fact that it has been surrounded by enemies from the moment of its creation, right? From 1948 onwards, it's been surrounded by people that want to kill them all. And the question is, let's imagine for a second that all of those guys were gone, right? That there's no more Hamas, no more Hezbollah. The Jordanians are at peace. The Egyptians are at peace. Everybody's friendly all of a sudden. What would that actually do to Israeli society? Do you think that would end up making Israeli society more coherent and more and more productive, or would it do the opposite?
That's a very good question, and it's a question which is not surprisingly often debated in this country. I think socially it will have a negative repercussion because they say to choose 3 opinions, and that is absolutely correct. So right now, we tolerate all our differences because we have an external enemy and we have no choice. But if we didn't have the external, I also, let's look at different nations. I look at Western Europe, and they haven't had an enemy in a while. And not having an enemy caused them to start just decomposing. I think people need to have an enemy. It's like, but I think that was the idea of Babylon 5, that the Shadows said that if you live without war, without striving, without conflict, you start to you become stagnant. So in our case, I think it will be socially, again, not economically, not militarily, purely socially. It would increase sectarian differences. It will make people less tolerant of each other. I think it will have a negative social effect.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true, and I think that maybe that is. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too psychological here, right? But maybe that creates a kind of an unconscious impulse to only get to like 99%, right? So that every generation, you guys end up fighting the exact same war all over again. Right?
Yes,
it's almost like clockwork, right? It's incredible.
But you spoke about
something
the crisis of the 3rd century. So you spoke of the crisis of the 3rd century. So I was looking at the history of Rome the other day, and about every 30, 40 years, they would have big wars with the Parthian Empire, basically Iran. And afterwards, it would be some time of just, border friction, maneuvering, and then another big war. So even the Roman Empire couldn't actually, in a very, imagine you were a Roman, you said, oh, we're having that war again. I can't believe it. We're invading Mesopotamia again. We my grandfather did it. His grandfather did it. I can't believe we're still doing that.
Yeah. Well, the Romans lived through war, right? And I mean, famously, there was a temple in Rome, in the city of Rome, that would have its doors would be closed when nowhere in Rome was not at war with anyone, right? And the longest it ever remained closed was for about 9 years or so during the reign of Vespasian, right? And all the rest of the time they were in constant war because they knew it. I mean, with the equestrian class, all of the elements of it was that they understood that warfare was something that was productive to the coherence of their society, and
also their economy was based on war.
Yeah, their economy and later on the cohesion of that enormous empire that they had in with such low technology could only be maintained by there being conflicts that helped to maintain that unity. Except the problem is eventually, as the crisis of the 3rd century shows, that there comes a point where it can spiral out of control, and then you're in trouble.
I think part of the problem back then was that the soldiers would get a little gift every time there was a new emperor. Yeah. So they were motivated to replace the emperors all the time. So they wouldn't they would keep getting those gifts. Basically, the system incentivized endless coups and assassinations.
Yeah.
But notice that even though they had 80 emperors in 50 years, the country didn't collapse. If you were a Roman living in Rome, you had good roads, you had clean water, you could go to the theater, enjoy a play. So that even though the emperors kept getting killed, the country was functioning fine. You had problems.
Well, there's different degrees of fine, but yes, I mean they ended up losing entire provinces to the barbarians and so on.
They could, but if you actually live in the city of Rome, that's not your problem. That's somebody's problem.
Yeah, but whenever the Egyptian commander of the legions in Egypt tried to revolt against Rome and declare himself emperor of Egypt or whatever, then there would be famine in Rome. So like there was still they still depended on a very sophisticated trade network and things like that, right? So things did get tougher in Rome every time that the empire itself became unstable, But yeah, I mean, anyways, I think that like there are aspects of Israel's situation that make it a net social positive to maintain the coherence. And one of the reasons why Israel still is a real, behaves like a proper Western nation state is because they have to have, for example, mandatory military service and things like that, because they are under a real threat that, as you put it, Europe has, most Western European countries haven't experienced that in an entire lifetime, right? The people, a person could have lived their entire life without having had the slightest real fear of being attacked,
It's a very controversial position, and especially since we're having this conversation on the eve of our National Memorial Day. But I am prone to agree with you. That is definitely a very valid point. And maybe, yes, on some subconscious level, maybe people feel that if we don't have like an enemy, we'll start turning on ourselves.
Now, the thing is, though, does that still mean that you shouldn't destroy Hamas, right? Something like that.
No,
because
of course.
From how I see it, regardless of that, I think that it is still better to be able to destroy Hamas than to allow them to rebuild by 2042 they're going to be doing another massacre, or whatever.
That's also like a strange issue. I noticed that people say destroy Hamas, destroy Hezbollah, and I always respond to that. Ask people, what was the name of Japan's ruling party in 1940? And most people, without going to Wikipedia, can't answer that question. They have no idea what was the ruling party of Japan. They say, but what does it matter? Like, they had an emperor, they had the generals. It wasn't a democracy. Like, what does it matter? What was the ruling party? And what I say is that it's the same thing in Gaza, in Lebanon. Like, Hamas is a political party. It's not something unique. They're not like some.
I mean, before Hamas was there, it was Fatah and the PLO, So
even right now, you have Hamas, you have the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, you have the Palestinian Popular Front, you have the another Popular Front, you have Daesh. They have a lot of parties. I mean, the factions would be more correct. All of these have private armies. So the idea that you could fight a political party instead of a nation is part of the reason why these are endless wars, because Iran is not fighting against the Republican Party. They're fighting against the United States.
That's true.
Hamas is not fighting against Likud. They're fighting against Israel. Hezbollah does not say our enemy is these and these parties in Israel. They say our enemy is Israel. During World War II, the purpose wasn't to defeat the Nazi party. The purpose was to defeat the Third Reich, the entire state.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why these wars are endless, because we say we're going to defeat like a certain political party, and sometimes we actually manage to do that, but it doesn't change anything. There are a million other political parties, and unfortunately, that's something that like even a lot of Israelis, if you tell that to them, they don't understand you. They say no, but like it's not all Palestinians. Yeah, it is actually. Like it doesn't say that every single Palestinian is a mortal enemy.
They overwhelmingly supported October 7th.
Absolutely. And they still do.
Palestinians were all for it, And you have hostages that had said it the whole time that they were there, and they were being moved around from apartment to apartment. They never had the slightest inkling of a single Palestinian that was the least bit sympathetic to them,
And not all hostages were held by Hamas. Some were held by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Some were held by private individuals who wanted to make money out of it. Some were held by like some tribes. So the idea that you can fight a specific political party is the kind of twisted, unhealthy thinking, which creates those problems, which prevents having a victory. Because the basic assumption of Israelis for 80 years, it changed recently, but for 80 years it has been that basically the Arabs want peace. We just want to create a situation for peace. They couldn't imagine there are people on a basic level don't want peace. It's not, And you spoke about the Roman Empire. The Romans didn't want peace. Like if you look at the Roman Republic, having a peaceful existence was never their goal. They didn't want to, like, maybe the Carthaginians wanted to like just live peacefully. The Romans didn't want that. If you spoke like, if you would like walk around the street with a phone, interviewing Roman citizens, they would say, no, I don't want peace. I want victory. I want to conquer. I want to triumph. I want to win. I want to have slaves. I want to whatever.
Which was an absolutely normal perspective to have in in an ancient society. Right?
Yes. So these people didn't want peace, and
that's
and
not
like,
unusual until modernism happened, right? Which is part of the problem, that you can't judge a nation like Syria on the basis of like modern liberal Western values, because they don't have that. For them, the Renaissance was just something that happened to other people. It's not. It's not a part of their existence.
Absolutely. So yes, I think that's a big problem, the issue. And another issue is that people say war is bad, war is evil, so we need to finish war as quickly as possible. And ironically, what they get is endless wars.
Yeah. Because
they finish them prematurely and then they start again.
Yeah, which is something that might be happening in Iran this time if Trump doesn't, hold his steel.
Yeah, the situation in Iran is a bit confusing. But the problem with the Iranians is they are right now, I think the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So, you have some government officials who say, okay, we want negotiations.
They've actually shattered the government in Iran. But the government in Iran was set up to be able to have like regional cells that will continue to operate if like the central government is destroyed, right? And that's a bit of the problem, is that right now there isn't a single Iranian government that you can force to sign a peace treaty with, right?
Yes. And also the kind of people who rule Iran, they do not believe in surrender. They say the word surrender doesn't exist in our lexicon. I believe them. Like if you look at World War II, the German government didn't surrender. Not a single high-ranking Nazi surrendered. They either died or committed suicide or fled.
It's for the same reason in Iran. They know that if they surrender, I don't think they're even as afraid of the Americans as they are of their own people, right? Because the only reason there hasn't been because Iran is not like Gaza, right? The vast majority of Iranians despise their own government, right? And
not without cause.
The fact that they're unarmed is the only reason that government still exists, right? I'm a little bit like, I would partially argue that what they should do is send in pallets of weapons and ammunition to the to hipster Iranians in Tehran, and have them just go around taking care of the besieged and the IRGC themselves, and then that you'll see that very quickly things will turn around.
But also the people who rule Iran, like the revolutionary class, I believe them when they say the word surrender does not exist in our lexicon. It really does not. They will not surrender. It's simply it's not an option as far as they're concerned. Like the Nazis, the elite of the Nazis, they would not surrender. The Volkssturm, how do you call their volunteer units?
Their what? Sorry.
In Nazi Germany, you had like the Volkssturm, I think, like their volunteer units.
Oh yeah.
The Volkssturm. So they didn't surrender. Yeah. You had like 10,000 Russian tanks rolling into Berlin. And you would send like 12-year-old kids with Faust patrons,
and old men,
and 70-year-old people, invalids, and they didn't surrender. And when all the Nazis were gone, like their leadership, the military surrendered, not the government.
Yes,
the government didn't surrender because a man like Hitler would never surrender. If you told him that if you don't surrender, the German nation would become extinct, there will be no more Germans on the planet, he would still not surrender. He would say, I didn't fail them. I didn't fail them. They failed me.
Yeah.
They gave me the mandate and they disappointed me. So the people like the Iranian clerics will never ever surrender. It is impossible to have like a stable peace treaty with them. It is impossible. It's literally impossible.
But Iran does have, because the thing is, people confuse the IRGC as being just the army of Iran. That's not true. There's a regular Iranian army. The IRGC are the Republican Guard elite sort of thing, right? And the regular army is a conscript army, right? Their job is to basically protect the Iranian borders. They're considered very low status in the Iranian society. But if you keep killing enough IRGC guys, then sooner or later the regular army could turn around and start. They are not going to be that same level of fanatic. Just like like you said, Donitz, when he surrendered Germany to the Allies, he wasn't really representing the Nazi party. He was a military man, right? And the regular military are not going to share those same perspectives.
But the problem is that imagine like Nazi Germany exists for a very long period of time, and all the resources were sucked from the military and given to the Waffen SS.
Yeah, of course. That is exactly what the problem. That's why they don't just do a revolution whenever, right? But if you disrupt the IRGC enough, then that could change. I think that there are pathways and directions. The thing is, if you do get rid of the regime in Iran, it'll become a different society, right? It won't be. I mean, there are various possibilities. It could end up in a civil war or something like that too, right? But it's not the same as in Hamas, as in Gaza, where you're right that if, let's say, you kill every last Hamas member, right, there will immediately be a new movement that will spring up that will be almost exactly the same. You're right about that, and then that begs the question: what to do about Gaza? It's
when you speak with Palestinians online, the ones who have a problem with Hamas don't have a problem because they're militant, because they want to destroy Israel. They have a problem with Hamas because they're bad at it.
Yeah.
We don't like Hamas because they failed. That's the problem. They're not good at it. We voted for them to defeat Israel, and instead they got us all living in tents now. So they're disappointed with their performance, not with their goals. The goals are universal.
Yeah.
And
it's a big question of how you fix that. It's very tricky. That and the West Bank, right, as they call it, Judea and Samaria.
Yes.
Because
so
they're slightly different problems, but I mean, in some ways, the problem in Gaza, you could just toss it away, right? But you can't do that with Judea and Samaria and the.
They are the same people, though. Yes, you're absolutely.
They're the same people,
absolutely right.
But one of them is in a convenient little zone, right? And then the other one is in a place where it's intermingling with Israel itself, right? And that makes it a lot more difficult. Right? You could say, we're going to sell the Gaza Strip to Somaliland, right? And then, okay, now it's part of Somaliland, right? And it's not your problem anymore. And that would be it, right? You just have to guard the border, but you can't do that in these Palestinian held territories that are a stone's throw from Jerusalem.
One of the suggestions, I don't know how realistic it is, but basically to create emirates, because there are 7 big blocks, and tell them, okay, you're the emir of Tulkarem, you are the emir of Nablus, you are the emir of Ramallah. And just have these separate little states. You are the emir of Khalil. But I think how would a different country, how would Russia, for example, deal with that problem, or Turkey? They would just kick out everyone to the nearest country. That's it.
Yeah. There is this question though about who benefits regarding the continued Palestinian Authority, right? Which hasn't, it hasn't done what it was supposed to do in any way, right? And why is it being allowed to continue existing in its current form? Because you're right. I mean, that is one of the biggest problems, is that under the Palestinian Authority, they're never going to want to get and that is one united government. If you had separate areas where you could also get people that are willing to be cooperative and have a kind of autonomous mini region, right? That could work. It's worked with some city states in Europe and things like that, right? So it could be possible. But why are people letting party of Arafat still run things in the.
That's why I'm always amused. People say, we have a right-wing government. The left is dead. The left did that. So the left in Israel defeated the Arabs and expelled 700,000 hostiles out of the country. The left actually finished the war. And now you have a supposedly right-wing government, which has been in power for almost 20 years, and they didn't cancel the Oslo Accords. They didn't disperse the Palestinian government. They maintained this leftist policy. And who gave the most amount of land to the Arabs? A right-wing government. Begin did it.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
So people have this absurd situation that they vote right, but they get left.
Yeah.
And every time there's like a new right-wing party, say we're going to be a real right-wing party, and then you vote for them, and you get.
Is that a problem of coalition politics? Because I mean, you guys have 2,000 political parties there, you know. And,
yeah, but right now, so like every single party in the coalition is right-wing. Like that's not a threat to the coalition.
Sure.
But right now, it's the first coalition in my lifetime which has only parties that identify as right-wing. Never mind that a few of them are not right-wing at all, but they identify as right-wing.
They claim to be, yeah.
Yes, and yet we have leftist policies, and I think it's the same problem also in Europe. I speak to people and they say we vote right and we keep getting left. Like
a lot of Americans do not know how good they have it having a two-party system, you know, because that at least prevents the problems that happen with these kind of like runoff elections and all this stuff, because that's always a setup to make sure that the middle is always what wins, you know, like it becomes just a blob, you know.
And but again, right now it's supposedly a right-wing government. Like it has no left-wing parties at all, and we still have leftist policies. And I tell people that they say, "Oh, Bibi's right-wing," and I say, "Why?" Like, never mind, he calls himself right-wing. Which actual right-wing policies can you point it in foreign policy and domestic policy? Because our economy is semi-socialist. Like I say, we are a social democracy. We're a typical social democracy, which for some reason calls itself right-wing. And it's very frustrating for people who want to have an actual right-wing government, and they say, I keep voting for the right, but I never get it.
Yeah.
And
do you think that'll ever change in Israel, though? Like, is there any chance that could be that it could be different?
Yes. I am optimistic in this regard, and I think that the problem is we had the same prime minister for so long that people cannot even imagine anything else. They have lost the ability to dream. Their dreams became very small. They think in terms of managing, not in terms of winning. They want to manage the conflict, not win the war.
Yeah.
And I think that as soon as Bibi is gone, and let's be honest, he's an old man. I don't think he'll be prime. Even if he wins the elections, which I don't think he will, but even if he does, he's like in his mid-70s. He's not going to be like a prime minister for a very long time. He will retire at some point. And then you will start have like people will start dreaming again. Will start imagining something else. And I think that from that frustration, we will get like people who will be really different, like a new class of politicians. I really believe in that.
Your wildest dream, who would you want to be the prime minister of Israel after Bibi?
Someone whom I haven't met yet. I haven't seen him on TV yet. Someone who right now is in Gaza or in Lebanon. He's a soldier. He's frustrated. He's angry. He feels that he's conquering the same village for the 5th time. He lost friends because of absolutely insane rules of engagement that no one can really understand. And he says that when I'm going to return, when I get home, when I get my business back in order, you know, when I have my wedding, when my kids are in college, I'm going to be the prime minister. I'm going to fix that. That's the guy I want to see as the prime minister.
Yeah, and you would hope that there would be people like that, because I mean, how many generations have gone by where the children are fighting the same war their father fought? You know, like it's ridiculous.
Like during that one war, which has been less than 3 years, you have people who conquered the same village for the 3rd time. Like a friend of mine said, we are invading the same place for the 3rd time. We keep doing it again and again and again. Towards what purpose? Like, why don't we just stay there? Like, is our life worthless? Like, why? And these are the people who they're in their 20s right now, but I believe that they will make an amazing class of politicians, an amazing class of leaders, and I think they may really change things.
Well, I hope so. It is well past the 90-minute mark now because we got to talking about Zionism. I think
but it's been a pleasure, really.
We should probably let you go here. There is one final question that we ask every time in the Pundit Encounter. It's a kind of contest, and it derives from the fact that I'm obsessed with RPGs. I play tabletop RPGs all the time. I've designed them, etc. But other than that, I don't really have any nerdy hobbies. Right? I don't play Warhammer. I don't watch anime. I don't collect Funko Pops. I don't play weird German board games. I don't even play video games. I don't read comic books. Right? My only, I do other weird stuff. I'm a historian. Right? I'm into, mysticism and all these sorts of things. But traditional nerd things are not things I do, except for RPGs. Right? So the question is, how much of a nerd are you, right? Because I think you're going to probably have a fairly lengthy list based on what you've already said in the interview. But how many nerdy hobbies do you have?
So I have basically two hats. My political hat and my nerdy hat, and I never wear them at the same time. So for some people, I'm 100% non-nerd, and for others, I'm 100% nerd. And I really separate those worlds. I don't want to miss them. So in terms of hobbies, I have endless nerdy hobbies. I play board games. I do watch anime. I read fantasy. I do have a collection of miniatures. You can look behind me. I have a collection of Tolkien calendars, which cover all the walls of my house.
I don't have any Tolkien calendars, and I don't play with miniatures.
Yes, and I have a few swords. So in this regard, I sometimes do indulge in video games, although very rarely. When I was younger, I used to play a lot, but now that I started my fifth. I'm going to be honest, I haven't played any computer games in years, but in theory, I still like them. I read a lot of fantasy and science fiction. I do read graphic novels.
I don't even read regular novels anymore.
I read a lot. I love reading.
Well, I read a lot, but not novels. Yeah.
No, novels. But at the same time, that is not my identity. I know people for whom D&D is their identity. Fantasy is their identity. Being a nerd is their identity. For me, it's just things that I love to do. But if my company, which is not like that, they will never know my hobbies. I will never bring them up. I'll never discuss them. So I have a very strict separation.
That's really similar with me, actually, too, because there's the RPG people know me as the RPG Pundit, right? But everybody else in all my other social circles, some of them would be amazed to even find out that I'm, I make my business writing role-playing games, they would never believe that.
Yes. There are people whom I've known for years. We have spoken about, politics, life, the stock market, whatever. And I never brought up the fact that I basically play D&D for a living. It just never came up.
Yeah, so that's funny. So you have in one way a very similar situation to mine. But we've got here the champion, the current reigning champion, who was on my show, Driving and Dragons, because all that he does is he only plays D&D, and then on top of that, he goes hunting and he fixes classic cars, which are anti-nerd hobbies, right? So he has been the champion. He was one of my earliest interviewees, and he is the reigning champion this whole time. I think it'll be very hard for anyone to beat Driving and Dragons. So
I'm not a macho man. I don't have any of those traditional, masculine hobbies. I don't cut trees in the woods, and I don't go hunting.
So unsurprisingly, Driving and Dragons continues to be the reigning champion of the RPG Pundit Encounter. I think Driving and Dragons always shows up when I do an RPG Pundit Encounter because he wants to make sure that he's still the champ. And congratulations, you are still the champ. So on that terrible disappointment, that is the end of our live stream. Thank you guys so much. Last chance if you want to share a super chat. Remember, it goes to the Domino Cat Toy Fund. And please check out all of my products. Also, in the description to this live stream, I have the links to Uri's Twitter and his Ko-Fi and his Substack, that if you are interested, I guess mostly in the kind of political side of what we've talked about, you should check him out. You should subscribe to him on X and check out his other stuff. And thank you so much for coming, especially knowing that it's very, very late where you are. I really appreciate it. And well,
thanks to the power of caffeine.
There we go. Yeah, it's the same thing here. So our next episode will probably be on the 17th of May. We do it once every 4 weeks. So you guys keep your eyes open and check it out. No idea who the guest will be yet, but it's always someone interesting. All right. And I guess that's everything for today. Thank you again, Uri. And
thank you very much for having me.
Thank you to everybody who was in the audience. And we will see you guys later. Take care.